Why is there a harbor seal walking around the office?
Oh, that's our new CEO.
Come again?
Well, apparently they didn't order through EasyCater for the board meeting, and when the food didn't arrive, they kind of lost focus. Next thing you know...
We have a seal as our CEO. Did I say something wrong?
No, she just wants a mackerel. Here you go.
Bad ideas happen when there's no food for the meeting. So make sure it's on time and as ordered from more than 80,000 restaurants. How? EasyCater.
Thank you. I just got promoted.
Order 24/7 on EasyCater.com.
Do you have a mortgage with mortgage insurance? If you do, then you're probably paying every month for mortgage insurance that you don't need. Your home has likely appreciated in the last year. Call Owning at 833-2-OWNING or go to owning.com to see if Owning can refi you out of this needless and useless expense. For example, if you have a $400,000 FHA mortgage, you're paying approximately $2,100 a year every year to protect your lender, not you. Does that make any sense? Call Owning at 833-2-OWNING and you can find out in a few minutes whether Owning can get you out of this useless insurance without cost or obligation. Call Owning at 833-2-OWNING or go to owning.com.
NMLS 2611, licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act, subject to credit approval.
That's 833-2-OWNING or owning.com.
How's your mental health? I'm listening with Alanis Morissette.
When it first started, I would have my nightly panic attacks, but then I started getting really curious about all the sensations. Like, I just really started looking at, okay, so chest is, I got really kind of granular in observing the details of what was really going on with the breath and my jaw. It's just survival strategy. It's cortisol cooking nonstop. Chronic stress is trauma.
Explore more at imlistening.org.
We're joined by the new head coach of the Orlando Magic. Officially introduced as head coach yesterday. He spent the last 7 seasons with the Mavericks. Orlando coming off a 21-51 season. Orlando holds the 5th and the 8th picks in this year's draft. Their head coach is Jamal Mosley. Jamal, it is great to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm great. I am just great. So it's been a few hours since you were officially introduced as the Magic's new head coach. How does that feel? I mean, does that feel pretty real to you at this point, or maybe is it still a little bit surreal?
It's going to stay surreal for quite a while. I truly believe that. It's all coming fast, but it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
All right, so your name had come up for other head coaching jobs in the past, but you had told The Athletic that, quote, you started to sense that there was a little bit of joy to where it was going, and to quote, in terms of the process with the Magic. So what happened during that process that made you feel like this might be different, and in fact, there might even be some joy?
Well, the multiple times that you talk and you start to get a sense of how the relationship is going, I think that's when it turns into something that you start to feel good about, just because the relationship, it opens up more in the levels of communication. A couple of questions may be different, but the sense of that just started to feel a little bit more real.
Orlando Magic head coach Jamal Mosley is joining us. I could see where that could happen. Let me ask you this. I want to go back to early April. When you were with the Mavericks, Rick Carlisle was going to miss a game due to a positive COVID test. It later turned out to be a false positive, but at that same time, he was not able to coach, so you stepped in. It was a really unique night. What do you remember about that game?
I remember getting a call and just thinking, like, are you okay? 1. And then 2, it was that became surreal as well, but it gave it opportunity to just, get out there and flow, be myself, and let those guys just get up and down and play, aggressive defense and get after it a lot, which was great.
For instance, you might tell me why it was surreal, but it seemed from the outside looking in, it was surreal in the sense that you led that team to a 99-86 win, and then afterwards in the locker room, you've got guys dumping water on you. It seemed like they were so genuinely happy for you and that it was so personal. Carlisle told The Athletic that these guys were celebrating like they won Game 7 of the World Series. So what did that particular moment mean to you?
That was a lot, and it goes back to exactly what someone said about the positive things coming out. It's the joy that, you want guys to have playing the game of basketball. You want guys to just love being in the gym and love competing, love playing for each other. And that's what it felt like, because each one of those guys, you have a relationship with, and it's about them and it's not about me. So when when it happened after the game, that's what it felt like, that they were overjoyed.
Jamal Mosley is the new head coach of the Orlando Magic. I'm glad you mentioned the word relationship because Carlisle loved that moment so much that he sent it to the Magic's president of basketball ops, Jeff Weltman, and the GM, John Hammond, when they were looking for a new head coach, because he says that is what it shows, the relationships that you have developed with your players. Like, I know relationships are at the core of coaching and that philosophy, but how do you go about developing those relationships, and then why are they so important?
You start out, developing a relationship like any given thing. Trust has to be earned. You have to genuinely care for guys. I think you have to find out what they're interested in and dig into that. That we all have basketball in common. That we get that. We can all talk about X's and O's and plays and games, but what makes a guy tick? What does a guy enjoy doing? What does he do when he's not on the court? I think that's important. I think you got to find out about guys and really care about the betterment of them.
Jamal Mosley joining us. One more thing about Rick Carlisle. In fact, a couple of things, because this is a big Rick Carlisle house. I think really highly of him. He said something to The Athletic about you, quote, "I see him as the basketball version of a young Mike Tomlin from the Pittsburgh Steelers, a natural leader of men who builds strong, meaningful relationships. Players will love his energy, his enthusiasm, his knowledge for the game. I just had this belief that players will not allow him to fail," end quote. Like, that's really, really high praise. What's it mean to you to hear that from him? And then how would you describe your relationship with Carlisle?
He is fantastic. He has always been teaching me, talking to me. His transparency and everything has always been good. And that's what prepared me so much to be a head coach, because he's allowed me to use my passion and that energy and the relationships and build that to how he does things. So it was a good combination of how it worked. And like the relationship with him it's been good, like, because he allows me to be me, and the energy, he's taught me so much. Like I said, I'm a fan because of his mentorship that he's given me and taught me the little things that you might not see in certain situations.
All right, so it's really clear what you think about him and what you've learned from him, but you've also coached with guys like George Karl and Tim Gergerich. What about the two of them? What did you learn from them along the way? What was that like?
That was my first introduction to player development, to adjustments on the fly, to letting coaches just coach and be them and let them figure it out and grow on their own. George was a master at adjustments, master at getting guys to just figure different things out. Coach Gerd just taught me everything I know about player development, and that's where the relationship part started, because he was doing things that weren't drills, but he was getting guys better, and guys were doing things that they weren't normally comfortably doing, but it was just, and he made them go hard at it. I remember him just being out there guarding, watching him guard Gary Payton, from that to guarding Kenyon Martin, and he's down there guarding Nene, guarding Melo, and, then he'd throw me out there. Those things were amazing to watch.
And Jamal, my first exposure, and I love George Karl, but my first exposure to Gerg was when I was at UC Santa Barbara, and he worked with Tark at UNLV, and they broke out that amoeba defense, and that was all Gerg, right? Like people love Tim Gergerich. What made him so unique, other than his willingness to get out on the floor and get into guys, because he was beloved?
Exactly what I was telling you before about the relationships. He doesn't do it for himself. He does it for the player to get better, and he does it for the game of basketball. That's what it's about for him. It's about giving back to the game that has given so much to us, and that's who he is.
Jamal Mosley is the head coach of the Orlando Magic. I love your background, actually. Like, if we were to go back a little bit, you were born in Milwaukee. You played your high school ball in San Diego. So when did you first get hooked on hoops, and then what was it about the game that you liked so much initially?
I got first hooked on hoops in high school when I moved to San Diego. My high school coach, John O'Neill, introduced me to the game and just the fundamentals of the game. We had another coach there that helped out, and Ed Gorgon, and they were just big in the fundamentals. So they just started from the ABCs of the game, and that really got me wanting to work and learn and just get better and better every single day. And the way he had us working was, he was a fan of Gergerich before I even knew who Gergerich was. And those UNLV days. So we had a lot of the defensive systems from them early. And so that's kind of walked me into just the work ethic, the defensive side of the ball, and just getting better fundamentally every day.
So you went to Colorado, and then you played overseas, and then in 2004, your mother passed away. I'm curious, what kind of an impact did she have on you as a person, and then how did her passing impact your entire life?
As a person, I am who I am today because of her, because of how selfless she was, because of how her vision for bigger things and better things always stayed within me. She was always about other people, making sure they were okay, making sure you could lift them up and make them better. So I think that's helped me so much in my basketball career as a coach, but just more along the lines of how I treat and deal with people, because it's so important. It started my basketball or my coaching journey because I was overseas when she started to get sick, and I didn't want to be away for so long. And when I came back and things occurred, and then you're kind of lost at that moment. You're at a crossroads. So when I hit that crossroads, I had, my friend in Colorado, Ronnie DeGray, asked me to come stay with him. And once that happened, then George gets the job in Denver. John Welch is there. Gerg is there. They bring me on. From that moment, it was just take off. Unpaid intern for 2 years, and then figured it out.
In fact, I don't want to gloss over that point. Like the point that you just made, you came home and you were at a crossroads and you weren't sure what to do and you stayed with a friend in Denver. You just said you worked as an unpaid intern for 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, well, George paid me out of his pocket a little bit for like the second year, but that first year I didn't make a dime. I remember driving 45 minutes from where I lived in Parker to the Pepsi Center and just trying to figure out what I was going to do, but I just kept showing up, keep showing up. And I kept showing up, following what Gerg said to do, figuring it out, keeping my mouth shut and just working. And, just slowly but surely I got a little opportunity after opportunity. Was player development, video, scouting, advanced scouting, learning the game. That was that. It just step by step, but daily, reminding myself just to keep going.
And consistent. And now you're the head coach of the Orlando Magic. I want to ask you about this, too, because this fascinates me. Legend has it you've done some MMA training. How did you first get into that, and what do you like about that? What do you get out of that?
It's the conditioning. It's the conditioning, but it's more the conditioning of the mind. That's the biggest thing for me. I have friends that do it. The studio I was in Dallas for the longest for some time was a great place for this MMA. It teaches. I think it's more the mindset of teaching guys to do hard things, to be uncomfortable, to be resilient. And then the one thing, you talk about it when you've got to compete against guys. There's a level of humility that you have to have. You've got to respect your opponent, but you also got to know that you've trained well enough to win.
It's so interesting when you say, like, you learn humility and you learn respect. This is just kind of sidebar. Like Conor McGregor, if I broke my leg and somebody interviewed me, that might not be my finest moment. He generally is lost with a lot of class. There wasn't a lot of respect. Did you watch that fight, and did you see him? And what were your thoughts when this guy's sitting in the canvas with a busted leg talking about the guy who just beat him down again and his wife sliding into his DMs? That was not the most respectful thing.
No, I didn't watch all of it. I didn't finish seeing the rest of it. I was in transition and moving around at that point.
And listen, I know it's unfair for me to put you in that spot. I actually apologize for putting you in that spot, but I just think it's really interesting because you're right. That sport is all about respect and humility, but I retract that. All right, I shouldn't have done that. What can Orlando Magic fans expect to see from a Jamal Mosley-led team?
I think they can expect to see passion, joy on the floor for playing, competing hard every single night, playing together, and just really just playing with that level of passion, but competing every single night with a mentality to go out and make other teams uncomfortable and playing together freely on offense.
He is the new head coach of the Orlando Magic. He was officially introduced as head coach yesterday. Orlando has the 5th and the 8th picks in this year's draft. They're always a good jungle team. Jamal, great to talk to you. Great to have you on this show. I hope we can do it again soon. Thanks so much.
Jim, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That was fun. Thank you so much. Congrats. Jamal Mosley joining us. Like I said, not too cool of me to say to him, hey, what do you make of Conor McGregor? I don't mind telling you what I thought of that.
Oh, thanks, everyone. I have 2 announcements. First, we didn't use Easy Cater for this meeting, which is why the food never arrived. Also, and I just thought of this, effective immediately, everyone will be paid in wildly volatile cryptocurrency. You're all now billionaires. And now you're broke.
Bad ideas happen when there's no food for the meeting. So make sure it's on time and as ordered from more than 80,000 restaurants. Now, Easy Cater.
You're rich again. And now you're not.
Order 24/7 on EasyCater.com.